great follow-up question to then this was the incorporation of indentured labour effective in its goal in allowing us to be at least a little bit more competitive? Because at least my where my initial thought goes with this is, even with indentured labour, I think you're going to have a very hard time competing with slave labour, even if Britain did have maybe a lot of the infrastructure and the markets and the know-how and the business expertise. So I guess, the first question really was this even effective?
Now I haven't quite followed through on what happened to profits post indenture. I think it certainly improved profits on the plantation colonies, but it didn't last for that long. I don't think indenture even lasted for 100 years. I mean, okay, I call that not very long, but that's because if it had been really successful, of course, a whole host of other things happened. The wars, the world wars happened, etc., all of which stopped
Mm-hmm.
indentured labor. But the problem with indentured labor was it didn't give a great income to the laborers, but it wasn't that low cost for the employer either, because you had to bring these people across
Right.
continents. A lot of them died along the way. So, really, quite large numbers of people did die. You did have to pay their fare, and though I think over time, the proportion of the fare they paid reduced. Even so, you had to pay a fare back. Um, they would try to get effort out of these workers through coercion, so beating and stuff like that. But as a lot of political economists at the time said, there's no incentive for the workers to work. Political economists will generally say the best incentive is to pay them a good wage. You're not paying them a good wage. So the next thing you have to do is to really monitor them carefully. But monitoring them carefully takes a lot of effort on the part of the employer. So, what then ends up happening
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
you're increasing costs of monitoring. You use quite a lot of sort of slightly problematic or very problematic coercion techniques, some of which include physical coercion, but others include things like cutting of wages, etc. So that by the end of it, there's very little wage that the person gets. After that, what effort can you enforce, right? There's going to be not much you can do about it. So I
Yeah.
think uh, the plantation colonies con- during indenture continuously felt sort of out of sync. It probably helped stave off the problems for a while, but not for that long. And of course, each of these contracts, in most cases, I think it was 5 years. It might have been 10 in some countries, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, but 5 years is not a long time. So you hear a lot of them say things like, when they come in, it takes them 6 months to a year even to learn the work, because you're bringing them from markets where these things are not grown. So you're actually teaching them new techniques and new ways of
Right.
working, new environment they're living in. So the first year is not going to be very effective, because a number of policymakers and political economists in Britain said 5 years is too long to tie somebody down. We should have much shorter contracts. If we are going to have indenture, it should be much shorter. But of course, the people paying for the labor said, well, in the first year or the first 6 months, we make nothing on them because most of the time goes in training and we've brought them over. So, there was always this problem of trying to make things work.
Yeah, I see. Because so it seems to be a measure to try and mitigate an issue that in effect wasn't actually going to be that effective, because on the one side it wasn't that great for the employers, or at least comparatively, and it wasn't great for the employees either. So in the long run, it maybe, like you say, it was a bandage on a wound that wasn't necessarily going to heal.